Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Mr. J's Geek Corner. Place we talk about anything and everything that is geek. Will be TV, comics, movies, or video games. And this week we're continuing the theme of shows. Shows suggested by you, the viewers. And as you know, last week's show was suggested by my friend and coworker who runs Lindsay'sToyRoom.com, and a follower on one of my followers on Google Plus named Nancy Classic Who Drew. I may be getting the name backwards. Sorry about that. But they suggested I do a toy review, and I did all my review of my all-time favorite Superman figures that have ever been put out. And this week's show comes from an idea suggested by another Google Plus follower named Shannon Bryson. And they're real big into Godzilla and everything, and they suggested to me a really great idea for a show. And let me turn my script here. I wrote it down here, the original idea, and that was which comic movies I think helped the resurgence in comic characters and movies. And I thought that was a really great idea to do a show about, and I fully set to do a show about it. But then I'd come up with an idea. I came up with another show idea. Top 5 moments that brought popularity to geek and comic culture. And I thought to myself, I started thinking to myself for prepping the show today. I thought to myself, why have that as 2 separate shows? Because the fact that his show idea, I had to think that his show idea has so much relevance to this show, to this other idea of moments that made geek culture popular. So I decided to merge their idea, Shannon's idea, and this idea together, because as I said, they go practically hand in hand with each other. So today's show is the top 5 contributing factors that popularized geek culture. And y'all know that you can't turn on YouTube or TV without seeing something that is geek culture nowadays. I mean, you've got TV or comic book. There are comic book TV shows all over the TV, all over television as a medium than ever before. And I mean, there's either comic shows or comic related shows, and either comic book shows or comic book related shows, and I've just never seen it like this before. And it just goes along with the fact that geek culture has been mainstream so much and has gained mainstream popularity, and you might say has become a real big cash cow, and it's making everybody a lot of money, and it's making making a lot of fans happy as well. So I just sat down and come up with the top 5. It is in no particular order here. The top 5 contributing factors that popularized geek culture so much. And number one is comic movies, and that's where my follower Shannon Bryson's idea of what movies do I personally think caused the resurgence in character and everything. This is the one main contributing the first probably contributing factor that helped the geek train going in mainstream culture. Is because of the fact, I mean, you started having Used to, you could barely even get a comic book movie made. I mean, back in the day, if you look back in the day about the 70s, probably the first one to ever, back in the day, you could barely even get anything. You could barely even get anything made on TV hardly. Back in the day, you may have had Batman, and then they had that Batman movie based on the show and everything. But for a while, you didn't have anything. You didn't have anything that was comic booky on screen. Until about the 70s when you had Superman. And the first Superman movie essentially launched the superhero comic book genre of movies. It was Superman and the whole Superman franchise. Then it was the Batman franchise, and after that, tapered off after the dud that was 4, the Batman franchise took over. And along the lines, Marvel tried their best to make other movies. There was a Swamp Thing movie that didn't do no good. There was which was DC, but it didn't get all that much notoriety. But Marvel, by grab, it trying to do their best to make a movie with Dolph Lundgren's Punisher that didn't do all that good. They tried to do a Captain America movie back in the day with I forget what his name is, some Schlesinger, I think it was, in which Red Skull was instead of being a Nazi, was an Italian fascist instead of a German Nazi. Red Skull was he was Italian instead of German, and a fascist instead of a Nazi. And that one was critically panned, from everything from the acting to the costume with the rubber ears on it. And then they tried making the TV movies that was Cap that really bombed. And they tried to make a Fantastic Four movie that you could only find in bootleg, from what I heard. But DC back in the day was really cooking. You had Superman, which after 4 kind of fizzled out, but they were still trying to make another movie. And they wound up taking the Superman idea and making a Superboy show out of it, which was a big success. And then you had, then there was the Batman franchise, which ran its course till about in the 80s into the 90s, till they rebooted into 2000s. But Marvel really didn't have anything back in the day in terms of movies, even TV shows for that matter, except for the Incredible Hulk, and that was their biggest success. They were trying their best to do anything to popularize, to get their characters into movies and TV, and it really wasn't working until about the late 90s. I'm gonna say it. What contributed to it, kind of the late 90s, you had everybody got tired of Batman, which nowadays you look back on it, that's hard to believe everybody got tired of Batman, but when you got a stink bomb of a movie, you got a stink bomb of a movie. You got somebody that just essentially ruins the franchise and leaves it a stinking, hulking mess. There you go. But nobody had everybody had basically, there wasn't any comic movies coming out or anything right around the late 90s. They were still trying to find a way to make movies. They were trying to make them, but nobody was making them. And the only way you saw superheroes in anywhere in the visual medium would be TV or movies, was cartoons. That was it. It was just strictly a kid's thing. And then finally, Marvel finally hit a nerve with Blade. Wesley Snipes starring Wesley Snipes. They hit gold with Blade, because that movie essentially Marvel was on the edge of bankruptcy at that point, and it's pretty much cemented them as a movie maker. And after that followed Blade 2, and then followed Blade Trinity on after a while. But that was Marvel's first big hit in movie theaters. That back in the day, probably the closest Marvel ever got to a big screen was Howard the Duck, and that thing stunk. But they finally hit. I think that's what really started. Hey, we can make comic book movies that are good, and they just took it and run with it. In terms of And then you had, and I think a while later out of Blade, they tested the waters with X-Men, and that was a big hit too. Because they were true to the characters, and yet they modernized them at the same time. As they just made it good. And being somebody that don't particularly like Blade or X-Men, those movies were good. Those movies were really, really good. And you move right along in the future, you start getting like and you get the 2002 and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movie. That's what really got the ball rolling for them. They were just getting things cooking, everything with Blade, and then they had success with X-Men. Then they put out Spider-Man. That got the machine going. Like when they churned out Spider-Man, and it made a whole full weekend of $114 million in 3 days. $114 million in 3 days. That's when the machine went to cooking big time. That's when that's what caused the resurgence in comic culture and popularity. That's what started getting comics more into the public eye. Again, bigger than before. That's when there's like, hey, there's something here in geek culture. And there's something here in comics and stuff. There could be a potential. This stuff is popular with a certain group of people. We can make this bigger. We can bring this to a wider audience. And that's when it started. Spider-Man 2, X-Men 2. And then finally, after a long while of being off screen, DC put Batman Begins out. They put out Batman Begins, and it did so good they put out Superman Returns, which admittedly didn't do as good as they wanted to, but still was a success. And it would end up setting back Superman from Return to the screen for another 7 years. But still, they tried. I mean, Batman wound up having big success on screen for DC. And Marvel started the whole thing with the event leading into the Avengers. I mean, it just started. Used to you could hardly get you get excited about the newest comic movie, but now it's a big bonanza. I mean, it's like a big extravaganza every time a new movie comes out. And like, how are they going to do it like this? Are they going to be true to the comics? Are they going to twist it a little? Are they going to put a new spin on it? It gets so much excitement in the news now. I mean, especially whoever they cast is like one of the big namers, like Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman. I mean, think about how much news was behind. Think about how much news coverage was behind when they picked Wonder Woman. I mean, and all these people who are going to play the Justice League. I mean, it's an even bigger thing than ever before whenever it comes to comics movies. So, in response to Shannon's suggestion, which movies do I think was the contributing? Which movies do I think was what helped in the resurgence of comic movies and characters? Blade and X-Men. I know he said probably one movie, but I was like, there's more than just one. I'm gonna say it was 3. Blade started it, X-Men continued it, and Spider-Man just set it ablaze. That's the 3 main movies that started the resurgence in geek culture and comics culture and stuff like and characters and movies being popular. That's what started it, and that to me is what started as one of the biggest things that started the popularization of geek culture. That is the number 1 contributing factor. And number 2 on the list is Comic-Con. Comic-Con has been going on for so many years, but it's just you had to look through certain news outlets to even know what the flip was going on. But in these last 10 years, Comic-Con has just grown from this thing they have in California to this big, huge media and even pop culture extravaganza. I mean, it goes even beyond comics and movies and sci-fi stuff. I mean, well, that's mostly that is what it is. But they try to they ain't dragging in like pop stars or anything like that. No, sir. But I said it's even bigger than before. It's like that's how they debut their movies. Like this past year, you had the first glimpse of Batman versus Superman. You had your first glimpse of Avengers: Age of Ultron. I mean, every year there is so much media hype around this event because you know what it's going to be. They're going to debut the biggest, most anticipated comic movies of either this year, next year, or 2 years from now. In the case of Batman versus Superman, but it just keeps getting bigger and becoming a bigger thing every year, to the point where the national news is covering it. It's like a nationally covered event. Maybe even internationally covered, because they do call it San Diego Comic-Con International. I mean, it is just so widely covered now. And I mean, used to, you could probably even get couldn't even hardly get one camera from a little local news outlet out there. Now, you got like major networks covering this. And there's never been that kind of exposure before, and to me that has been a big helping contributor to it, but to geek culture gaining so much mainstream attention and popularity. Because like I said, used to, you never saw this kind of clout for Comic-Con. Now anybody show up at Comic-Con, even wrestlers. You got this year you had Hulk Hogan, you had Sting, you had like CM Punk, even though I think he was reporting for Nerdist. He was reporting the news for Nerdist, but you just, you got all these, and you got major celebrities showing up out there. You never saw this kind of thing before with Comic-Con. You know, like major celebrities showing up there, because most of them is major celebrities. They're in the movies they're promoting out there. So, but still, I've never seen this kind of attention for Comic-Con in the last several years. Until these last several years, I didn't know what Comic-Con was until about 2003, and I just thought it was awesome. I still think it's awesome, and I wouldn't mind going someday, but probably ain't ever going to happen. But anyway, and like I said, that is, to me, has been a major contributor of why geek culture has become so popular. Become so popular these last few years. Third, and number three, the biggest contributing factor to me is Big Bang Theory. I mean, you had to. Like I said, Spider-Man started it. It just kept churning and churning. It started to get more movies and made and everything. But what really but another thing that really brought geek culture to the masses is the show Big Bang Theory. As I'm wearing on my shirt here. I said that one show has so much geek stuff in it, packed in it. You got like, other than just being like brainy science and everything, they're comic book geeks. Geeks, particularly Sheldon. There's a lot of folks that hate this show because it almost like parodies it and everything. I actually like the show pretty good. But there's a lot of folks out there that don't like the show pretty good because they almost make a joke of geeks and everything. And really, I don't think they do. I don't think they make a joke of geeks. If they're making a joke of geeks, it would be more a show like Mad TV, or they would be acting stupid if it was a parody. And they're not acting stupid. It's just that's about a good portrayal of comic book geeks. It's a show about geeks, and I said, it's probably veered away from that a little bit over the last few years, but still, it's one of the strongest themes in that show. Is there, other than just being brainy scientist types, that at the same time they're not almost not as far as they think they are in some areas. They're comic book geeks, and that's, I said, being, and then the geek part is a big part of the show. The geek culture part is a big part of the show, and to me, that has brought so much more attention to geek culture and helped to popularize it and to mainstream it, and over the years. And I say, and the show's still going strong. Like says, I think it's like in its 8th season now. And to me, the show's still pretty funny, even though I don't really watch it anymore. And my mom actually said that Sheldon, the way Sheldon is about comics reminds her a lot of me. So, so that shows you that they're actually getting a spot on interpretation of what comic book geeks can be like. I mean, not everybody's the same, of course, but that's what the spot on interpretation. What a lot of comic book geeks, including myself, act like when it comes to comic book geeky sci-fi stuff. So, I said, to me, that was a big contributing factor to bringing it to a geek culture to a wider audience. And number 4 is I think number 4 biggest contributing factor to geek culture becoming so popular is merchandising and advertising. I mean, back in the day, I'm gonna say back in the day, you could barely even, when I was a kid, you could barely even find anything that was hardly superhero related. I mean, used to as a kid, I've looked everywhere. When I was got like 1994 or 5, you could right before then, you could barely even find anything that was Superman on the shelf. I mean, I always loved trying to find figures, trying to find T-shirts and stuff. You couldn't find nothing. It wasn't until like 1995 when it was the next time I ever found a Superman figure as a kid. Nowadays, you go to Walmart or somewhere like Walmart or Target or something, it's everywhere. I mean, it wasn't until, I'm going to say it, up until 2000, and I think it's 2000, maybe 1999. I hadn't had a Superman shirt since I probably was like 4 or 5 years old at that point. I hadn't had a Superman shirt since I hadn't had my hands on a Superman shirt since I was like 4 or 5 years old and wanted one so badly. I ain't get one till I was like 15, 16 years old. And I had to go way off somewhere to do it. To get one. Go off to like I think it was a beach store to even get a Superman t-shirt. That shows you how obscure it was. And that shows you how unheard of it was to have in like a main store like Walmart, unless it was in the kids section. And even in the kids section, you couldn't barely find one there either. But then within the last 14 years, within the last probably 9 years, they're everywhere. I mean, it started. I think it started off. There was a Batman. I think I found a Batman shirt at Walmart. Then it was Superman. Then it was all, and then over time, that's like probably, I'd say probably like 50-60% of what the men's section is now is superhero stuff. I mean, you go there now and you find like these silky cyclist shirts and hoodies and thermals and t-shirts and underwear and hats, all with like a lot with Superman on it, and there's some with Batman and Ninja Turtles and even Power Rangers. And I mean the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, of course. But it's everywhere now. I mean, used to you could barely find a Superman poster or anything. Now that's like a good portion of what they got on the thing now is like superhero and geek related stuff. And I mean, it's like Superman, Star Wars, ain't just Superman and superhero stuff. You got Star Wars and Star Trek. I've even seen in the last year Doctor Who t-shirts. And that's something I've never seen in an American store before except on the internet. I've never seen any Doctor Who t-shirts before until this year. I mean, it's just everywhere. Everywhere. I'm not complaining personally. I like it. I love seeing this. But it's just, at one time, that you would never have seen that anywhere unless you just find one here or there. Now that's everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I mean, stuff like you used to could only get online. Now you could get in like say a Superman costume shirt or a Batman costume shirt. Now you can go to Walmart and get one for even cheaper than you can get one on the internet. I think it's awesome, personally. And as for advertising, I mean, they've done it a few times back in the day, like when they had Batman promote, used Batman to promote Diet Coke when Batman Returns was about to come out. They used Batman to promote OnStar and based it around the first movie. They even had Alfred in it from the first movies. They even had the Batmobile from the first, and the stylish suit from the first movie. It basically it was based kind of in the continuity of the first Tim Burton movie, because, and to me it was actually pretty awesome looking. But back then you didn't see that much. But now you got but now even more than ever, you've got like Superman energy drinks from when Superman Returns came out. You got Batman. We got Dark Knight Rises Mountain Dew based Mountain Dew. It's like dark berry color, or like dark berry flavor they're calling it. And you've got like Wolverine. Like I heard on episode of Foamy the Squirrel, talk about they use Wolverine to promote. They got Wolverine promoting shaving razors. Using Wolverine to promote shaving and promote Gillette razors and stuff. And just last year they did that with Superman. That same thing. They had they were using Superman to promote to promote not only Gillette or Schick. I can't remember which one it was because they had a DVD that came out with. They had I think it was a Blu-ray DVD combo with a Schick razor, and I think shaving cream with it too, which to me is unheard of. And also they had during Man of Steel, they had Superman promoting, of all things, Hardee's. I mean, the last time I've heard something like that was way back in the day with Batman and the first Batman movie and Taco Bell. Back in '89, because I remember the cups even that far back. But but I said that, and they did that this year also. They did that with X-Men Days of Future Past. They had them on Hardee's cups. I saw X-Men on like Hardee's cups. There's a brand of chocolate covered pretzels that had them on it. There was I think I saw Transformers on like Cheez-Its, and this year they had a new Transformers movie. I saw Transformers on Cheez-Its. I saw them on they had Cheez-Its and Oreos. I mean, there's just a lot of food based stuff that has. There's like food products and non-food products that have got a superhero or something geeky on them. I mean, they've done that a lot, but the last few years it's just been even more so. I mean, it's just incredible to see how much they use geek culture. It's become so popular using it in advertising for about anything. I mean, you look, there's the latest Apple commercial. A lot of what you see decorating their computer is geek stuff. I mean, it's like icons of geekdom, you might as well say. I mean, I've seen it had like decals of Batman and Wonder Woman and Catwoman and Darth Vader on it. I thought you saw Star Trek, if I'm not mistaken. But it's, I guess, that shows you just how much geek culture has now permeated the mainstream now. It just shows you how popular it's gotten. how advertisers are using it to make gobs and gobs and gobs of money, capitalizing on its popularity, and just they're making gobs of money at it now. And it's just amazing to see that now. At one time you wouldn't even barely seen that, but now that's everywhere. And lastly, number 5, most important contributing factor to the popularizing of geek culture is being accepted for being a geek. I mean, that's another talking point I heard from from Foamy. Back in the day, you wouldn't dare say you were into comics or anything, particularly in school or anything, because there would be kids that would beat you up and call you a geek. Being a geek would get you branded. It was a brand of doom, and it would be used to brand you and pick on you. Geek was used in a negative connotation. They would beat you up for being a geek. They would pick on you for being a geek. People got picked on for this. They got picked on back in the day. Now everybody's a geek. Now that it's popular. Not only that there are a lot of other folks at one time that didn't consider themselves one, now consider themselves one. People that have always been this way, excuse me, have always considered themselves this way, are now accepted. They think it's because it's now cool to be a geek, and it is. It's now cool to be a geek, and there's folks that ain't really into that kind of stuff that just climb on board that ain't even into it really. They just into it because it's popular. But the people who have always been geeks all the time have been picked on for that. But now it's being accepted. They don't pick on you. They think you're cool now. It's cool to be a geek now. And because because it's popular, and it's just everywhere now. And as I said, I've always been personally a geek myself. I've loved superhero stuff all my life. Ever since I was a kid, ever since I was 3 years old and got my first Superman figure, I've always been a Superman fan. And just over the years, I've just gotten liking so many other things, and then I started buying comics more in like 2003. And like I said, and look at me now. Look at me, and now here I am, talking to y'all on YouTube. And like I said, it's just geek culture has become just so popular and mainstream nowadays. It's just unheard of. What started out as like a subculture has now become mainstream, and it's just amazing and weird to see all at the same time. But what do y'all think? Y'all think it's too mainstream? Do y'all like this being a geek is so popular? Do you not like it? Do you think it's gone too mainstream? Did I miss any points of any contributing factors to geek culture becoming popular? Let me know. As always, drop me a comment in the comment box. I would love to hear from you and read your comments. And I guess that's all for this week's edition of Mr. J's Geek Corner. And thanks again to Shannon Bryson for the great idea for this show today. I really appreciate it. And as always, if you have any comments about the show, drop me a comment in the comment box. I'd love to hear what y'all have to say. Like, subscribe, tell all your friends, share with all your friends. And y'all have any ideas about anything you want to hear me talk about or discuss on the show, drop me a comment in the comment box. I'm always looking for fresh, new topics and things to discuss on here and talk about on here. So drop your ideas in the comment box. I would love to hear from you, and you never know when it may be made into an episode of Mr. J's Geek Corner, just like this was. So drop your comment and so drop your ideas in the comment box. I would love to hear you. I'd love to hear from you and love to hear your ideas. And next week we'll be continuing again with suggestions from the fans. So stay tuned next week for that, and I'll see y'all next time.